Yeah, it was the difficulty for me as well was getting your name right, because I think if we're at an event, I'll call you Gaiden. So I was
Yeah.
like,
So,
ah, okay, cool, like Gaiden,
yeah.
like, you know. But then I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
shit, is it actually EXGaiden? Like, have I just been
It,
kind of
right. So here's the thing. It's actually when I changed it, it was EXGaiden,
right?
right? So
You used to be
basically,
Hulk, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
remember that.
Well, I've been a lot of things, funnily enough. Like I've changed my name quite a lot. Can't seem to sort of stick with a particular name. So I was Hulk for a bit when I came to the FGC, and then yeah, sort of during lockdown, I was like, new name, new me, you know.
New
I,
name,
I,
who
I don't, the
dis?
thing is, Hulk never really like it wasn't me. You know what I mean? Like, or at least it wasn't me anymore. Like, there's a story of
Right.
why I was called Hulk, but it, yeah. So EX Gaiden kind of is more in line with what I like. So like, I'm a big fan of the Ninja Gaiden series.
Nice.
You know, just huge fan. Also Resident Evil and lots of other sort of games that you probably wouldn't expect. But and then the EX is kind of like FGC related. You know,
Yeah,
EX moves. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um, simple as that,
Of
really.
course, yeah. Yeah, it was just because I suppose for the other guests and stuff that I've had, their full name is just the name that I would use them by, or like, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there might be a shortened abbreviation, but I was like, is it EX or is it not EX? Should I put down Gaiden as the
I
name
think
and
it's
EX?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's like Immortal Soul, right? A lot of people just call him Immortal as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's like that is fine because a lot of people call me Gaiden, and that's fine. I kind of like that because it's like it's a variation. Some people call me X, which is funny, like, because it's like yeah, it's just even shorter, and it's
yeah,
not really
yeah.
what it is, but it's fine. It works, and also Mike as well is fine.
Right.
Like people call me Mike, I have no problem getting named.
Yeah. I always thought that was so funny getting into this world because
Yeah.
obviously they're made up names. We pick these names for ourselves, like, And I always tell people that one of my friends is called Eternal Dragon. And he's a really nice guy. But, like, to an outsider, to somebody who's
Yeah,
not involved in esports,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
a wild concept. And I'm like, yeah, no,
yeah,
Dragon, man. He's class. He's such a cool
yeah,
dude,
yeah.
like, and stuff.
I think as time's gone on, I have become more embarrassed. Like as time's gone on, I'm like, oh, I'm involved in this thing, and then here's me, and then like, what's that? EX Guide and what's that? I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, you're right. I think it's a little bit weird because when you think about it, you know, we're going around with these code names,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Really
Like,
cool secret agents.
you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so it's
Um,
funny. I think the stance I take now is that I think these, like, anybody that I meet or talk to or whatever, you just say sorry. I'm Sam. Like, who are you? And
yeah, yeah,
depending on what they say, if they say like
yeah, yeah,
John or
yeah,
420 Swagnamite, I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
no problem. 420 and me,
yeah,
we're just hanging out there at the bar, like,
yeah.
Um,
I always say Mike, but then I then back it up with you may also know me as like if they
right.
if I know who they are and they don't know me by face, maybe it's the first time seeing them offline or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Then I will say, oh, it's EX Gaiden, by the way,
yeah.
and they'll be, oh, right, okay. But yeah, I always introduce myself as Mike as well. So like,
Sure.
it's fun. Yeah, I'm phasing it out. I'm phasing out the game names as much as I can, just to
Keep it professional. Keep it government, man.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah,
So for people who don't know you, do you want to just give a brief rundown about Rise and stuff
yeah,
and how you got in? Because you told me a really interesting story not so long ago that you started as a CS:GO player. All
so, yeah.
right,
Counter Strike
right,
source.
right,
So
OG
yeah, yeah,
stuff, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So well, yeah. So no, I played Counter Strike for years, from sort of college to uni, and I was really good. I was playing at like the top level in the UK for like a number of years. And I say number of years, probably like 2 years. I mean, gaming moves so fast. Like I was looking back on it the other day, and I was like, that was literally like 3 years, and it felt like forever. Uh,
That's
it was
crazy.
literally, yeah, just the started off in Counter-Strike and sort of fell in love with competitive gaming. Before that, I was pretty much I love story games, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, as I mentioned before. Yeah, well, I got into those a little bit later, funnily enough, and that actually came after the competitive side.
Oh.
It was more to do with that I'd always liked it, but I'd always been a bit of I was a bit of a pussy with difficult games. Like, I was like, I'd be like, I don't want to play, it's too hard. Like, but then, like, when I got good at games, competitively, I wanted to challenge myself. So, like, I would play like Ninja Gaiden and games like that. And now it's becoming even more popular with the Dark Souls series and stuff like that. A lot more people want that challenge. Probably multiplayer's played a part in that, really.
Sure.
People getting much better at games because they're playing against like real people and skills. But yeah, no, I think a few people know this story. I've spoken a couple of times, but obviously, new audience. It started off really like, I played at a very high level, and I essentially retired after university. I was just like, I don't really want to spend much time in this anymore. And of course, it drags you back in. And it didn't take much. So me and my friends casually playing Call of Duty, right? And it was like Modern Warfare 2. And we was like, oh, we should play one of those game battle sort of, cups, right? And we were just going to do it for fun. I was like, these guys are not competitive, so they probably don't know what to expect. We're going to get absolutely bodied, right? Yeah. They're like, oh, we'll be fine. I'm like, I know what competitive players like. We're just going to get destroyed, right? So we played a game, and I don't know what it was, but we got destroyed, like, bad. But there was one round where it was close, like one round, and I was like, I missed this, and I was like, I'm gonna play Counter-Strike again, just for fun, see where it goes. And I put together a team called RIZE. In fact, originally RIZE was called GRIN.
GRIN, G-R-I-N.
G-R-I-N, yeah, right. GRIN. That was the original name, and obviously it stands to reason with 4 letters for Call of Duty, right? In your tag, you can only have 4 letters. So it was GRIN, and then it changed to RIZE. And basically, I just wanted to get back into Counter-Strike. So I recruited some people that, back then you would go on like the league websites and like go into like looking for how many players or whatever,
right?
Before Discord was a thing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I don't know, within about 6 months we'd won a few things, and it was like, oh, we're all right, but we were never the level that I used to be at. Like, I was pretty bad actually for a while, because I was trying to juggle job, relationships, everything, but I was good enough to like win small cups that I like, sort of tier 2 UK level,
right?
But we got the attention of a few people, and they were like, oh, can we be RIZE? I'm like, no, we got a full team, man. He's like, no, you don't understand, like, we're all Portuguese, we want to be RIZE Portugal. And I'm like,
what?
Oh, okay, right. So, and it's the first time I was just like, this could be an org. Like, I could literally turn this into an organization. So the standard thing every org did back then was like, okay, we need StarCraft 2 players for sure. Like, like every org has a StarCraft 2 player. So we literally picked up like 3 or 4 of the best in Europe.
Really?
Didn't know what the fuck. Yeah. Some of them went on to play for Fnatic, dude.
Jesus.
Like, yeah. Like, some of them went on to play for like big teams. But at the time, we didn't know the fuck we were doing. We were just like, you want to play for RIZE? Go on, like, go ahead. And they're like, oh, they've just competed in like a $10,000 sort of qualifier, and we're like, nice job, dude. And it's like we didn't know what was going on. So like, but we were just happy with like, we've got this all going, and then eventually it just fleshed out to like a bit of a community as well. Like, we had RIZE 1, 2, and 3 in Counter-Strike, StarCraft players. I think a few different games dropped over time. I think Hearthstone, League of Legends, these kind of games were coming out. Probably League first, actually, yeah. And then, we just kind of fleshed it out. And then we got into the FGC, sort of, for Street Fighter 4.
Oh, okay.
And the FGC was something I was already part of through university. So before you've got all this, the UFG stuff now, the university fighting, whatever it is. I forget the name, if someone can correct me.
Yeah, I know the Irish one is the Irish Collegiate Esports, and they just
I should know this because CSC is from there.
Oh,
no, it is UFG. It is UFG. I don't know what the G stands for. Gaming, fighting games, probably.
Probably.
So anyway, Yeah, so I was already part of Soul Calibur community for in university. So, and that was Soul Calibur 4, because I used to play a lot of Soul Calibur 2 and 3, like a lot, but only casually, at home with friends and that kind of stuff. And then when Uni came around, people like, oh, you play Soul Calibur or whatever. 4 dropped, similar time as Street Fighter 4, if I remember rightly. So I was already sort of part of it. And I was like, oh, well, I've got RIZE. It'd be great to have like an FGC side of it, right?
Yeah.
And then, we sort of got into it and sort of learned our way through Street Fighter 4 into Super Street Fighter 4 into Ultra. We'll do this bit again.
Yeah.
Super Street Fighter 4 into Ultra Street Fighter 4. Yeah, Sam, you're definitely not gonna clip that bit out. You're not staying in, is it?
Definitely.
Yeah, and then Street Fighter 5. But the thing is with Street Fighter 5, the very beginning of it, I think there was lots of problems with it. The tournament format it went too big too early, in my opinion, and it kind of undid a lot of our work that we were working on grassroots wise.
Right.
I won't name sort of any organized like tournament organizations, but there was a lot of money on the line very early. Yeah. And it just kind of diluted. It made like all the other tournaments just to seem very insignificant.
Yeah.
In that respect, apart from the Capcom Pro Tour, but even then the money was even bigger than that, really. So we had a little break from the FGC, and a little game called Tekken 7 came on the peripheries. I mean, I think it was already out then, like in the I think it just got this Fated Retribution.
Oh yeah.
Release and stuff, and it was actually Shen. Actually, I tell a lie. I'm gonna have to roll that back. It wasn't Shen. It was a guy called KNX, right?
I've never.
He's a Birmingham player, and he was like, "Oh, I'm playing Tekken 7. Do you want a Tekken 7 player?" And we were like, "Yeah, sure." Did the whole thing again, like, "Yeah, sure." That kind of stuff. And then we supported him for like national events, really, like small local events. And that's how I kind of got into the scene. And I already knew Shen from Street Fighter, who was basically running NBA at the time with a few of us. Shout outs to them. Obviously, I'm from Manchester, by the way, so that was my local scene. So I would go to the locals to support people playing Street Fighter and the players playing Street Fighter, but it wasn't until Tekken that I actually was in the scene.
Yeah.
In that way, I think nationally I was part of Street Fighter, but locally it was only till Tekken 7 where I was like, I'm part of the Manchester scene. You know what I mean? Just no other reason really. I just think it was just I just grew to love the FGC, and so obviously Shen, like I say, he sort of helped sort of us understand how Tekken is like where it's currently at. He's already seen Street Fighter go through so many sort of iterations or whatever,
right?
And sort of helped us establish that, and then the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah,
we went through. We decided on a philosophy straight away. Like I don't know if you've seen the film Moneyball.
I think so. Is that Brad?
The movie? Yeah. So I like to say this, but obviously Moneyball's way more complicated. Like the actual Moneyball's way more complicated, but it's the concept that I love. That is that looking for specific attributes in players, not just their current results. Looking for things in the players that can lead to results, right? A lot of the things were. I mean, I'm a competitor by nature, so I did a lot of sports when I was younger: martial arts, rugby, sprinting, swimming, all that kind of stuff. So I'm naturally a competitor myself. So that was one thing I wanted to look at is people that have that kind of natural competitive spirit, the never say die kind of thing that almost embodies the idea of RIZE itself, is like, and the name itself is like, we ain't done until we're done, right?
Right.
And I think someone who's happy to lose probably wasn't who we were looking at, because especially at that time, we were very serious on the competing side. Like, we want people who like are really going to dig deep and try and get those wins.
Yeah.
And it was a big thing. So Moneyball like I say, the idea was look for attributes that we feel like will lead to positive results, and we feel like we've done that across the board. Like we found players like Chickenmaru, obviously Richie now. Prior to that, even Immortal Soul, when we saw him basically playing at Coventry, and we could see sort of his resilience in some of the games playing against K-Wiss and Kane and Trench. He didn't get far in those tournaments, but you could see things in it in there that sort of would point to that. And then obviously before that, we had a core group who have just been mad consistent as well. Look at Dante, for example. It wasn't really until season 4 where he's had a bit of a consistency dip, as he would admit himself. But before that, very consistent, because he had a lot of the things that we would look for, which would be, very good fundamentals, great throw breaking, like, the desire and competitive sort of way of the analytical way of, okay, why did I lose that as well? And actually looking at it instead of just crying about it, trying to come back stronger. Those kind of things. I could obviously speak on a lot of people in RIZE. Difficult for me to sort of like, I don't want to leave anyone out, so I'm going to try my best not to name people other than the obvious people that may come up. But
there was a really interesting point there, right? So like obviously, like as a competitor, my brief 3 months in the competitive scene on the online, before online was cool, I don't have a lot of experience in the actual kind of competitive world. But you just touched on a point there about like really good throw breaks and like good fundamentals or whatever. Like, so when you see a player, like when he's kind of unsigned or whatever, are you then watching his tournament and stuff, and maybe watching a bit of a stream or something, and kind of checking stuff off? Because I mean, the only way you can tell if somebody is good throw breaking is to see him try to get throwed a couple of times, like,
Yeah. So that was just kind of like something that. So the good throw breaking is probably on the less important side in correlation to the other stuff, because that's something that can be improved on objectively, right? You practice. The more you practice that, the more you're going to get better at that.
Yeah.
You can't objectively improve attitude. Like you have to have a will and a desire and a sort of a way to sort of work on yourself. And I think that's important. But you're right. Yeah, a lot of the time. So it's about watching a lot of games. It's really about watching a lot of games. So at the time, there was multiple people with myself that would be in the background looking at players as well, and they'd be like, take a look at this player. What do you think? And then we'd have like discussions around it. Dante was one of them, funnily enough. Like in one of the Manchester tournaments, he was using Jack, and there's a few things that I saw in there that I thought, he's fundamentally he's actually pretty good.
You have to be to play Jack in tournament.
Yeah. And his punishment was really good. And I've got to stress something. I'm not a good Tekken player because I obviously just don't have the hours. I'm not able to sort of have the matchup knowledge or anything like that. Just even like the muscle memory to, okay, I've got to practice reacting to this and doing this punish and that. I don't have any of that. I play very much on feel.
Yeah.
I play the old school sort of Yumi way. I am actually a Virtua Fighter player.
Right.
So I kind of try and use that way of thinking a little bit as well, where it doesn't always suit Tekken. But I think actually, funnily enough, I think it's going to suit Tekken 8 a lot more. Like I do.
I feel that
the mind game, the mix-up mind game is going to play a big part, which is a big thing in Virtua Fighter, because Yumi is basically like, getting in the head of the opponent, understanding what they're going to do, and basically, making them second guess and sort of and it's almost like an intuition, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to have to translate to Tekken 8. I don't want to jump straight to Tekken 8 now. I know you was asking me a question before, but I think that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
So
from playing it.
You played it, yeah.
Yeah, it's very much run forward. Like I know everyone kind of likes to shit on the word aggressive and stuff, but like they just made a couple of kind of quality of life changes for people who like to run forward, like and exactly what you're saying. If you have a heat mode on and you're in somebody's face, they now have to guess. They can either push a button, block low, or block, you know. So I completely agree with you there that Yomi, it's actually the Japanese word for read or something, or readable. Or something.
I'm glad you corrected me on that as well, because I couldn't remember if it was Yumi or Yomi, but
I'm pretty sure it's Yomi. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, no, I always used to play like that as well. That, like, as far as kind of frame that optimal punish and all of that sort of stuff, like, that was the kind of last thing for me to learn. Like, everything.
Well, I have a pocket Eddie, which is very basic, right? But I think the character Eddie lends itself to that, because there's a lot of visual noise as well. You can really overwhelm people.
Yeah.
So whilst you just build up their mental stack and then you run a mix up on them, and they're like, oh, I just wasn't ready to think about that. Like, you know, I think, and that's why people call him cheap but not great, because once you run out of these sort of gimmicks, you know, the mental stack is harder to build up.
I love before I forget term, visual noise. Sorry, that was just a really cool. I like that. That's because that almost like that's the Sona, the player from Finland. His Eddie, it was all that. It was just confused them into like. Traditionally speaking, you could block everything that he does, like if he's in it, but people didn't, and it was like, it's just because he's jumping and dancing and having fun, like, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like the art of distraction.
Yeah. Distraction jutsu, man. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, just to finish that point is that I'm not a good player in that sense. So a lot of these things I think are quite a lot of the things that I'm looking for sometimes can be quite instinctive as well, just because of my other competitive sort of experiences, and in fighting games as well. Like I say, Soul Calibur, Virtual Fire. I think a lot of it's from understanding other players and how they articulate what the game is as well. Like, that helps us a lot. People probably underestimate how much I listen to very, very good players, even though I'm not doing it, I'm playing it myself. I understand high level concepts, even though they would sort of become sort of useless to me once I'm actually there, you know.
Yeah. You'd make a great commentator.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, touching on that, great job on all the stuff that you're doing, man.
Thank you, man.
It's great to see, to be honest, because I can't remember the first time I saw you at like a big commentary gig, and I was like, oh shit, Sam, come on, let's go. I can't remember which one it was. Which was your big first gig?
Probably Evo, or maybe ICFC, and then that kind of led to more.
No, it was Evo. It was Evo that got me like, shit, Sam, you got Evo.
Yeah,
that's big.
That's big. That was genuinely, that was huge.
That's ridiculous.
Dude. I couldn't even believe it, like, because C4, he's another commentator on the scene, but he hates this story because I applied, I remember, but I didn't have a reel. So I just sent like a load of YouTube clips of like the kind of biggest shows that I had done up to then. I can't even remember what they were, like. Normally they review your reel and then they send you back an email or whatever. But I was contacting the guy who books the talent. And it was about something entirely different. I was going to pitch new t-shirt designs for the next season of ICFC, because I was a fashion designer for a brief period, and I was like, I wanted to kind of see if I could get in there and get my kind of name on it. So I was just literally just chatting to him back and forward about it, like, you know. And I said, well, look, I was being cheeky. I was like, oh, well, look, when I head over to Vegas, I'll and he goes, I haven't told you you're coming yet. And I was like, yet? ? And he was like, what are you doing on these dates? And I was like, no way.
Oh my god.
And then like literally it was nuts, man. That was like, because I think there was a lot of people that were like, you can't do it. The whole top level of commentary was a closed group. You couldn't get in, and there was no space for anybody else. And people had told me this, like, I mean, production teams were like, you can't really do it because, I mean, the thing is already full. You're not going to get any shows once it gets to a certain level. I was like, I might just give it a try anyway, like, if that's okay with you guys. Like, and then, you know, now people are saying the book or the room is closed and I'm in it. Like, and I was like, you don't see how you're just stopping yourself there now. Like, oh, you'll never. And the Tekken Illuminati was the phrase that keeps.
Oh yeah,
Man.
I've heard this.
I hate this story so much because it's like, there has to be a way to get into the Illuminati. Like, stop bitching that there is an Illuminati and show up at the door.
What? You didn't have to drink blood.
I didn't have to lie in a see-through coffin and have boys throw stuff on me, like, you know.
I think I can understand why some people would think that way, but I'm a firm believer. Like, I think there's a lot of people try and sort of curb me in what I want to do and what I want to achieve, and I just feel like it's just to do with, like, ignore what they, you know, this is about what I want to do.
Of course.
You know.
Of course.
And just sort of sticking to, you know, your targets, your ambition, what you want to do, and just having self-belief and stuff like that. At the end of the day, you're very charismatic, Sam. You know, you're a good speaker and you've got a great personality. I think that's an important aspect to commentary anyway. So if you're stood around shooting the shit, you know, and me and you, we've stood and you know, we were shooting the shit at, you know, Golden Letters, right?
Yeah.
You could tell that you're the kind of person that I feel like complements a commentary team. Like, it's just obvious to me because you're a good personality and you bring something different, you know, to the talent as well.
Yeah.
It's not like you walked in without talent, is what I'm saying. It's not like It's not like you just asked. Like, I get this idea, you know, always ask, you know, put your best foot forward and just put yourself out there in the first place. That's number one. Always do that, right? But two, obviously, you have to have something. Unfortunately, people will get rejected on the basis that they don't have what you have, and that is maybe a dynamic, a personality type, or, you know, confidence, or the way that you sort of articulate and things like that.
You see, I don't know. Maybe I'm coming from a biased position because I am a commentator, but I find that there's so many different ways of commentary, and obviously, like, I can't be paired with everyone, or, like, you know, like, Bandai know that, like, usually it's probably better to pair me with Spag than it is to pair me with, I don't know, maybe Steve or something, because you know, there's
a lot of energy there.
Course, you know, it's very difficult to have a cool down moment. Two of us are sitting there, but. Like, I think that there's room. Like, if you look at, like, the way Bubsy commentates and the way I commentate, two completely different styles. Like, you know, and so yes, there obviously is a little bit of that sort of loudness and confidence and jokiness and that sort of stuff. But that's the way I do it. And, like, if we're sitting around having a couple of beers and watching a stream, that's the same. I'm there. Oh shit! Oh, how did he get away with that? So, like, there's definitely space for people who can't do anything that I can do, but do other things way better than I could ever even imagine to do it. Like, you know, I don't think that this is a closed room, and I think anybody who tells you that, like, I mean, they do 3 and 4 day events, man. Like, you know. There's room there for, look how many commentators are on the lineup for, you know, Evo. There's like 30 commentators, like, you know, like, now, to be fair, some of those guys have been in it for the last 20 years, but, like, you know, I'm the perfect example. I was turned down for shows. I was only doing online. There was a lot of, like, you know, I don't know the game that well, all of this sort of shit. And then out of nowhere, Evo and the Tekken World Tour Finals. So where's the gap there, like, you know, between all of this shit that goes against me and literally ticking life goals off? Like, you know, it's just literally just showing up to work, arriving on time, smiling, shaking hands, like, making all of the right moves and not believing that it's a closed room. Like, there is no Illuminati. Sorry for anybody who had this, like, fantasy in their head, like, or whatever, but there's no Illuminati. There are production teams and production teams.
I think it's it's very anecdotal as well for people to say. You know, they maybe have had a bad experience themselves, and therefore, you know, and again, I'm a firm believer of looking at what you did wrong and looking at how you can improve yourself, right? So, you know, maybe there's something that there's a reason other than it's closed that you can't get in. Maybe, you know, maybe you don't come across that well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't. There's harsh realities that people have to face, man. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't without being savage about it, you know.
No, I completely agree. And I think that anecdote of, oh, but sure, you can't do it. But it's so much easier than being like, well, if I want to do it, this is what I have to change, like, or this is what I have to do. This is the struggle now to get me to that point. People don't want that. They want this. Oh, well, you can't get in. No, you know, it's a Illuminati shit, like, you know.
I think there's one aspect as well. I think obviously, you know, as you pointed out, this is this is a job. You know, you go to work with colleagues. These are your colleagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in any workplace, you know, I go to an office 3 days a week. You know, I've got to get on with my colleagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's someone that has previously sort of like caused friction with people that work there, are they going to get that job? So I think sometimes if there's any history and things like that, where with any of the current commentary team that are well established or whatever, then it's obviously going to be difficult for Bandai Namco to be like, I don't care, put them together. You know, there is going to be, because chemistry is important, as you mentioned before, not just your styles, but also, you know, just how comfortable you are with one another. Yeah. And if there is pre-existing tensions and things like that, it's going to be obvious on stream, right? So I think if there is problems, right, with there's commentators that want to get into big gigs, then I would recommend that if there is problems, to just try and resolve them behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then try again, because you know what I mean? Because that's important, right? That everyone gets along in a job.
Yeah.
In a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but you're right. Like, look at it like an office, like, you know, and especially like it's a small team that do the Bandai shows. Like, you know, it's basically there's 4 or 5 of us in Europe, and then there's the same in America. Like, you know, like it's a very small office. So if you're not getting on with one of the people, it's so much easier for Bandai to call me up, well, I get on with all these guys, like, you know, all of them, like, you know, it's very, very easy. I mean, look, there's going to be roadblocks in the way for anybody who wants to do basically anything. If you want to,
anything,
like, you know,
this is not just commentary. This is anything. It's literally anything.
So, like, I mean, you have to make the decision: is the effort worth getting over that roadblock, or is this maybe not the road you want to be on? But don't look at the destination and say, well, that's impossible to get to, because it's not. Anybody can do this shit, like, you know. Logan Sama told me that he could take anybody on the planet, train them for 6 months, and they would be a top Street Fighter commentator. Anybody. And he is so confident in that fact. Like, I was kind of questioning it. I was like saying, oh, there's some things that, you know, you might need to learn or whatever. He was like, nope, everything can be taught. And within 6 months, I can teach anybody to become one of the best Street Fighter commentators, like, you know. So, I mean, he is the OG now, like, you know.
He's been doing it for so long,
Yep. So if he says that it can be taught in 6 months, what is your excuse when you sit there saying, I can never get those gigs, like, you know?
Yeah, after a month. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I've always taken the stance that you have to work at it, like, because I was a musician before, I was an actor before that, and all that, and like all of these jobs, everyone says, oh, you'll never make money off them until you make money, and then people go, wow, oh my god, you're so lucky, and you're like, what? Luck ain't got shit all to do with it, Holmes, man. It was great.
It's hard work and persistence. It's hard work and persistence. I feel like I'm like one of the most persistent people that you'll ever meet, genuinely. Like, I don't like quitting. Like, I hate the idea of quitting. I always want to pride myself on doing everything that I say I'm going to do. And if there's a genuine reason why it can't be achieved, then I will try and substitute it for something else that's just as good. So, you know, I will always try and like work hard. And obviously, to my own detriment, is I also like trying a lot of things. So I have a lot of thick spinning plates. It's very difficult because I like to pick up new things, but also don't like to drop things. So everything just gets added, but nothing gets dropped. So I'm working on it.
Yeah. So what's the wildest new thing that you've picked up?
Oh, I'm making a Resident Evil game. Like
What?
like well, not a Resident Evil game, but like inspired by the classic Resident Evil. So
Yeah.
yeah, me and my buddy opened up. I used to play Counter Strike with him. Opened up a Unity, collaboration team. We set up the whole organization. We've been creating this boilerplate for like it basically plays like an old school Resident Evil game right now, but with nothing in it practically. It's just like. We were like, oh, this is gonna take forever, like, and then we've got all these, wild ideas. We're using ChatGPT to generate like concept art and stuff, It's like I'm like, I don't have time for this. I was like, it's like 2 a.m, and I'm like, I gotta get up in the morning. I gotta get up at like, 8 a.m. or whatever.
Oh God. Yeah, that's wild, man. Jeez.
That's the latest one. Yeah, that's the latest one. I've also I'm now a registered amateur boxer.
Let's go.
So I did kickboxing for years, as I think I touched on before. So like I did pretty well. Like I had a junior black belt, and then I got upgraded to a full black belt and stuff like that. Tournaments and stuff like that in kickboxing. But boxing, I've always watched it but never done it. Right. And it is quite different, and I've enjoyed it. It started off as a bit of a fitness thing, just get fit because there's nothing like it, and there absolutely is nothing like it. Like you are tired after training, like it's a lot. But now, I like to be good at things. I don't like to be like, oh yeah, I'll try it. Now I'm like, I've gone into a different class, and I've had to register for the British Boxing Association. Yeah. So like, I have until I'm 40 until I can't be on there anymore. So 5 years.
Let's go, man. Yeah, I was a boxer when I was a kid. You're right. It is a difficult training thing, and I think there's just something like with any sort of combat stuff that you want to get fit because you don't want to get punched in the head, or like, it's like it's physically detrimental for you to miss training or something,
Yeah, I think if you're doing sparring, I think that's when you learn the most. Like you'll learn techniques, you'll get your fitness up and stuff like that, but when you're actually in front of someone is when you're actually going to learn the most about yourself as well. What am I like getting hit in the face at 34 years old, right? I was fine when I was younger, but 34 years old, I haven't been hit in the face for a good 5 years, well, maybe a bit more. But,
no, it's funny. But yeah, let's go back to the RIZE thing, because you have a really, really cool internal structure with your team. You told me about it at Golden Letters, that it's that you have almost like a tiered. Are you allowed to talk about this publicly?
Yeah, we could. I can sort of give you a sort of overview of it.
Yeah, it's so how I imagined it was almost like a tiered system. That you have your top dogs, and they're the ones that are like, I don't know how to phrase this without sounding like shitty to the rest of them, but they're the guys that get almost full support or something.
Yeah, so the way it works is we introduced something called the dojo, right? Which we might have to change the name because there's too many fucking dojos around now, especially with the Tekken World Tour dojo system back in. Mm-hmm. We was at Electronic Dojo last weekend. So yeah, but we have basically a dojo system. The idea that was introduced because ultimately, we were talking about this scouting sort of system that we had previously, right? And we would look for a lot of games, and we would find talent that way and unearth them and sort of bring them up and things like that. Now, one of the things I noticed was obviously we did lose some sponsors in the UK. And whether people know this or not, I actually tried to support a few different organizations in recruiting some of the players that were sort of deserving of sponsorships over time. Whether that worked out or not, it's nothing to do with me. I just basically, sent a list of names and people, sort of what they were about, to try and give a bit of life to the scene in terms of in a competitive sense. ultimately, there's still this. What I noticed was that there was still a lot of players that would sort of had a lot of potential and kind of, had a lot of room to grow, but necessarily didn't have the sort of motivation or impetus to do that. So that's what the dojo was about, really, is to create a tiered system under a mainline roster. So the mainline roster is how it's always been, right? And the dojo division or team or roster sits below that as kind of like a progression to that mainline roster, right? So it's almost like a promotion ranking system. So once you hit a certain sort of threshold, you're promoted to the mainline roster. Neon K is the first one that was actually came out of that because he had a meteoric sort of rise, excuse the pun, himself. And, I remember when we were trying to get him offline, it was just like, come on, you can do it, come to it's literally up the road, you're in Tottenham now, come on, come to your first offline. I had to speak to his mum.
Oh, wow.
It was, well, I had to write something for his mum, and, it was just at the time he was under 18, he was 16 years old.
Wow,
so
Jesus.
Yeah. But sorry, I'm sort of digressing a little bit, but so the dojo was kind of put in place to kind of create a bit of a competitive hub for players in and around a certain sort of level that could then basically go on and sort of be molded in a way that we hadn't done it before. Whereas we looked for, like I said, the Moneyball system, where we looked at different particular sort of attributes of players and sort of done it that way. This is more like maybe they don't have all those attributes currently, or necessarily, not that they don't, just not necessarily, but also try and see if we can sort of develop them to have those attributes that are recipes for success, right? And at the moment, one of the key things that we're doing is just trying to create a competitive sort of environment within the team itself, make sure they're playing each other, have a little bit of an internal rivalry going on, but also a teamship as well. So I'm a firm believer that, when you have support in the FGC, I feel like you do feel like you get a bit of a lift and a bit of a boost. So I think that's important to have that team ethic.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's tiered. So, there's RIZE R, RIZE RS, RIZE RX. The names sound like something out of Fast and Furious, but like if someone mentioned it sounds like a, Need for Speed.
Yeah. It's the cheat card.
It's like it's supposed to be kind of more along the lines of RIZE is R, RIZE Super, and RIZE Extreme kind of thing, right. But without saying that, it's kind of like the Japanese sort of naming conventions. That's where my brain goes again.
Right.
As a fan of that kind of thing.
I think I don't know, is it even a hot take, but I really, really love that system, because I think that me and Rukang talked about this, that like there's a lot of orgs that just they want as many people in them as possible, because the players underneath them become billboards, like for whatever, and they say, okay, we've 100 people going to this show, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like, I mean, you mightn't even make back the price of the jerseys then, like, but obviously the sort of community aspect is a big kind of part of the FGC, obviously the C in FGC, but so I'm a huge fan of this, that obviously, let everybody in, but like if you want, like, this is what we can offer you if you can reach this threshold. I think that's such a great system, because it gives a very clear and defined target, and then a very clear reward once that target is reached. Like, I think it's a fantastic system. Like,
I think it helps us to pace things as well, because there's always the next player coming through, right? And it gives us an opportunity to sort of like work with them earlier than what we would normally do. Obviously we might have been watching them for a while, but they wouldn't be under us, right? And in this case, we could literally get someone who turns up to an offline tomorrow. No one knows who he is, but maybe we've done some research and we know that, they maybe they're an online sort of ranked player that gives some people a lot of trouble and has a lot of, potential and things like that. And then, but we know about them. We can actually bring them in and sort of nurture them along that way, whereas before we might actually just waited. But Chickenmaru is a good example of that. So Chickenmaru was known for a while as like an online warrior. obviously Joker was as well a little bit, but like Chickenmaru was like an online warrior for a long time. Obviously Eddie, everyone knows Eddie was. That was a different situation. But
Did you guys have Eddie for a little bit?
yeah, we did.
Wow.
But again, that was a more of an that was a different kind of thing. I can't take too much credit for that. There was a team called 200K.
Yes, I remember they had two of the Irish guys. They had Senior Farfalla and Vitalik. Those two guys.
Yeah. So when those guys were kind of like on the way down, basically they were closing up, basically, and Eddie sort of left them, and about a couple of months later, messaged me and was like, "I'm looking for a team now." And he'd on a couple of occasions beat some of our players to the top number one. So we were like, "Why not?" So it was a little bit of a cherry pick, which is it's not something I would like to do, but it at the time was kind of just made sense, to strengthen the team.
Yeah, Eddie was a monster for a minute, man. I remember that. Like, he won every online tournament in Europe for about a year straight. Like,
it's an online warrior, like, through and through.
Yeah. Sorry, I completely distracted you there.
No, Chickenmaru obviously was like, known as like this online monster, and it was a little bit different because, we could see him, what he was doing online. People were mentioning him in ranked. We were seeing clips of him against some of our players in ranked. Then there was like online competitions. Elf were doing online stuff at the time. And we were like, yeah, we need to sort of strike whilst the iron's hot because he's poised to come offline.
Yeah.
He went to an offline in Elf and did really well, but it wasn't streamed. It was like they called it a dark tournament because they never, I guess because they didn't stream it.
Right.
And yeah, we were like, he's been to his first offline now. We need to kind of like get him in.
Yeah.
Because we feel like he's going to blow up. And he joined us pretty much after that. And then his first thing was an online win, which was Elf. I think it was Elf, like one of the Elf tournaments. And then his first offline for us then was like at Red Bull.
Right.
And he actually didn't do well. He came 17th.
Okay.
And he lost to Arsene Wenger and he lost to Girdle, maybe. Yeah, so kind of it wasn't the sort of dream start that we hoped for, but it gave us a good understanding of like, okay, he's not perfect, he's not a monster straight away, but his attitude sort of improving and playing against some of the best in the UK, along with a lot of the players that were going to the Red Bull frequently as well. False God Ryan was going frequently. Right. We had ASAP Marco as well, who still with us, ASAP Marco actually, but he's more of a community. He's a community member now, really. Right. Just supports the team. He's still got some good knowledge and some good insights.
Of course.
He was leveling up. Literally didn't take long before he was like getting top 3 positions in London.
Yeah.
And then winning a couple of them.
I think it was the first Celtic Throwdown I did. He won it, first place, and then there was the grand final against Dante or something. Was it an all RIZE?
No, it was Rukang.
Rukang, yes.
Dante came third. He lost. I think it might have been a slow mo to Rukang, and it was like he did the wrong thing. And it was like, no, it was like a slow. When a slow-mo happens, but the outcome.
Yep.
It was like, no. I think it was one of those, from what I remember.
God.
I've seen a lot of games, so trying to piece sometimes they get mixed up a little bit, but
yes.
But yeah, no. So Dante came third in that. He beat Gunny in the mirror, absolutely destroyed Gunny.
Yes.
Destroyed him I was going wild watching that because I was like, this, this is a big match. Gunny, people saying he's the best in Europe for Jack, and it's just like you're playing. This is it. This is do or die, and he just smoked him.
Yeah, God,
that
was mad, man. Back in the days when everybody kind of used to play Jack, and now those two names like Gunny and Dante are about the only Jack players in Europe now. I think.
I mean, if you don't count me.
I mean, competitive. I don't know.
I think there's a couple, but I think actually during that though, I think there was even less. I think there wasn't many Jack players then as well. I think it sort of died. They did die down around season 3.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just thinking about Saint.
Oh yeah.
When,
Season 1. Oh, Season 1 Jack was just.
yeah.
Yeah.
When the Echo Fox guys, Saint and JDCR, running around the world beating everyone. That was a wild time.
Amazing.
But yeah, hey, do you want to take a quick 5 minutes?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Drift. Thanks for listening to this episode of Fuzzy Guard. If you haven't already, subscribe to our social media channels and you'll never miss a shot with Sam. Don't forget to hit that like button or give us 5 stars and share your thoughts in that comment section below.
Yeah, just a cool guy. I met him at Golden Letters as well. We had a good chat about stuff. He was an old Counter-Strike guy as well back in the day.
Really? Man,
from what I remember, yeah.
How many people play Counter-Strike, man?
Oh, it was huge. Bro, it's huge. I mean, it's still big now, you know. It's surprising to me how big it is still.
Yeah.
Like, every now and again, I think, oh, should I go on a little play? And I'm like, nah, I'm done. I'm an old man now. I genuinely get too angry at not being able to do the things I used to be able to do.
Right.
So then I don't know there's no escape. I'm just like, I just have to just constantly die. Like, you know, so I just end up like, I'm not going to play.
And what about Valorant? Have you?
Yeah, I was all right at Valorant, you know. I think it's a little bit easier than Counter-Strike. I do think it is.
Right.
I think the hitbox is a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the utility and the whatever spells, I guess.
Yeah. The abilities, the overall
abilities. Okay, yeah. Lost my words. I think the abilities make it a little bit like you can get around not having the best reactions if you're good at sort of like managing your abilities and stuff.
Yeah. We used to have great fun with that. I suck at shooters. Like that, time to kill for me has to be very high. Like, you know, for me to have fun with the game, because it's just like you know, and because I never played CS:GO, but I remember like going into Valorant and just like running out, playing it like it was an old Call of Duty game, like, and I'm like, just buy the shotgun, easy, man. The judge, this thing's only 600. Yeah, cool. Running around the corner and boom, and I'm like, how did he hit my head from that distance? That guy is a crazy shot, and then it happens in every game, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be playing these.
There's one thing to remember though, right? So I always say this about the time to kill, right? Because some people say, you know, I prefer a higher time to kill or whatever. And I say, well, that's cool. I prefer a low time to kill because remember, it's a high time to kill for them as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's you know what I'm saying? So it's a high time to die.
Sure.
So I like being alive for a long time. So if I'm constantly dying, there's a chance that I'm just going to eventually get fed up with that.
Right. Yeah,
Whereas with these kind of tactical games, I feel like, okay, how can I prolong my life?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then it gets me thinking a bit more tactically, you know, slower games, slower gameplay.
Of course. And do you guys still have teams in other games? Because I only know the RIZE FGC division.
At the moment, no. At the moment, competitively, we only do fighting games right now.
Right.
So we do Mortal Kombat still. We kind of do. We win a lot of stuff in ESL. But we're kind of waiting to, you know, biding our time for Mortal Kombat 12 to drop.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be Mortal Kombat Gold. I've got a feeling like they dropped a gold trailer, like blowing into like the big bang type thing.
Yeah.
Teaser, yeah. You know, we got a guy cut in. Basically, a lot of them are in Italy. So there's Mirko. He's like basically the best Scorpion in the world. Like, you know, he's so sick. And if they're gonna do another We Play, then he's 100% invited. There's no way they can't not invite the number one Scorpion, who's basically winning 2 out of 3 ESL.
Damn.
You know, invitationals or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, he won the PlayStation tournament, won a PS5, like in lockdown. You know, and then obviously the Tekken team. You know, we've got Virtual Fighter plays a lot. So just to touch on this, actually, and I know I'm speaking at the speed of light right now.
No, it's all good, man.
You know, we like to look at games as well that maybe aren't like the most AAA games in the fighting game world.
Right.
And try and give them a little bit of spotlight, but also have one sort of mind on potential new games coming out and sort of already sort of being established in the community and understand the ethos and the traditions and things like that. And me playing Virtua Fighter helps a lot with that as well, kind of like understanding how good these guys are.
Right.
Griffin Bones essentially is our only Virtua Fighter player, but he goes to like all the big tournaments, you know, Combo Breaker, Frosty Faustings, all those, and he's got multiple top 3s in all of those. So like for us, And hopefully if Virtual Fighter 6 comes out at some point, that, you know, he's going to be well ready to sort of like, you know, hit the ground running with that.
Yeah.
But he's just in general a very good fighting game player. Like he's just so good at a lot of games, and he plays a lot of the, you know, the obscure FGC stuff. Like he's like the best in the world at like the Jackie Chan fighting game, right? You know, like he's so good. Like, it's actually funny. And I did a podcast with him not long ago, and we talked all about these games like Toy Fighter. Like he's good at toy. That was on main stage at Combo Breaker.
What's Toy Fighter?
It's a 3D fighting game, and it's just like it's on Fightcade. A lot of these games are on Fightcade, so they have rollback and everything, like, you know.
Damn,
and
man.
yeah. And it's pretty cool the way it's set up. I'm trying to remember the mechanics to explain to you now, because they've got a very unique mechanic. I think it's like they, instead of having life bars, they have like sections like
Right.
life, whatever.
Yeah, like hearts almost, like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's.
I didn't know how to describe that then.
That's really cool, man. Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to like get good at.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna send you a list after this. I'm gonna send you a list after this, and we throw down on Shaq Fu.
Oh, dude, let's go. I want to be a commentator for one of those weird games. So like,
I'll get you on. They're happening all the time, and you know what? Some of them have no idea what's going on, and they just have fun. Like they're just, you know, they're just. There's one called Dino Fighter, I think, something like that, or Dino Rex, I think it's called.
Right.
And it's just like this bad like dinosaur fighting game, you know. It's just like, but it raised like over $1,000 in the price.
What?
For an online Dino Rex fighting game, you know. It's so funny. And I signed up, but I missed it because of the timing. It was like it's an American thing, and just missed it. But yeah, so not to forget, we have the current Dead or Alive 6 world champion, Hoodless.
Nice.
Unfortunately, the DOA 6 championship was in 2018, so he 2019. So he's been waiting around for a little bit, but you know he wins practically all the DOA 6 stuff, majors, you know, Combo Breaker, all the other stuff, and all the community side games at the major events, Frosty Faustings and stuff. So we also have like the current Combo Breaker champion for Bloody Raw.
Nice.
Jerry the OG. He's like a really good content creator as well. Like, you know, he does pretty well on YouTube, you know, 7 or 8,000 subscribers, like just for pretty much Bloody Raw content. So, which is cool.
That reminds me, anybody who's enjoying the video, remember, click subscribe on the YouTube and something on Spotify. I'm not 100% sure. Let us know down in the comments section if you're enjoying this video. Now, see, Drift, I did it. Yeah. I always forget.
If in doubt, click all the buttons.
Yeah, just click every single one of them.
Apart from the one that's like this. Don't do that one. Do they even have that anymore? I don't even know if they have a downvote anymore.
I haven't disliked a video in so long.
I mean, who dislikes videos? Those people have got no life. But then again, I take that back. I suppose giving feedback is probably good, but it's like, maybe don't show it, because then people are going to do it just to see how far the number can go.
Yeah.
maybe they could add it, but like, don't display it, you know?
Yeah, do that. Just put a comment down and like.
Oh yeah, that works.
Let us know why you don't like it. But dude, I was thinking about Dead or Alive 6, right? And because I played Dead or Alive on the original Xbox, like back in the day, and I had so much fun with it that I was like,
Dead or Alive 3.
Yes, and then there was Dead or Alive Ultima as well. Was one that I played. But I wanted to get back into it, and I was like, look, I'll pick up the game or whatever, and you know, start playing it a bit, like. And I just remember losing all faith in it, because the game was like, say it was €40, right, whatever the game was, and then
it was 50, I think, €50,
right? But then the DLC costume pack was 90, and I was like, it's a really weird pricing structure there. And then look down through everything that was included, and it was like the Hitomi bikini pack.
All the bikinis.
All of them. And I was like, €90. So now I'm paying, you know, €140 for all these DLC things. Because did they have characters? I can't even remember. But when I saw that, I was just like, yeah, this probably isn't the game for me here. Like, you know, if it was just a base game, and like I understand costume packs, like everyone wants to kind of dress up their character and stuff, but like when it was that many bikinis and like
It was exploited. Yeah, Koei Temco exploited the hell out of it. I think I don't know the full ins and outs, but obviously there was a big debacle when they first announced the game, the core values thing. Did you know about that?
I think so. I remember
When
core values is now like the
Yeah, the meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, from what I remember of this is the origin of it, is like, they demonstrated the game and they were showing the replay feature where you could like spin the camera around,
right.
and someone was basically legs in the air, and they were spinning the camera around for like a good 3 minutes around. Yeah, and it was just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? I think it might have been Evo Japan. It was like, what the hell is, what's going on? And I think from there, they basically went and made the game really conservative as a base game.
Right.
Like they covered everything up, which was obviously a lot of people were like, why would you do that? It's Dead or Alive, but whatever. It's a fighting game. I wasn't bothered by it. But then obviously then they went to make the DLC. Then they monetized the bit that they covered up. Like, like you're paying, yeah. So it's just like, come on. And then the game itself, I mean, it looks great.
It always looked really fun.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's compared to Dead or Alive 5 last round, it's just like an easy mode DOA. Like,
right.
It's kind of, when I say easy mode, obviously I'm going to get my ass absolutely destroyed by top players, and I'm not disrespecting, especially like, Hoodless, who grinds to get, he still grinds for the community in terms of, he hosts a week, Hood weeklies and all that kind of stuff. The scene is very much based in the US. Like the European players are few and far between. You would rarely get, a tournament in Europe these days, but, I'm not putting down those guys, but, the game is just not competitively. This, they took a lot away and they made it a lot more beginner friendly. But like in cheap ways, they kind of added like a meter system that kind of like does a shitload of damage, basically.
Yeah.
And not even the way that we're seeing Tekken 8, more in a like even just like basically a rage art, but you can mash buttons and then do a load of combo damage.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
I don't know, man. Honestly, it did not look like my game because of that. When I saw that and they were like, oh, the Ultimate Edition or whatever the fucking thing was like 100 and something, and it was just the base game and all bikinis, like, But look, sure, that's their niche. Mortal Kombat moved away from it in 12. Do you remember when they announced all those characters and they're like, Katana doesn't have a gaping hole in the middle of her jumpsuit anymore. I don't want to play this game.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat moved away from it. Soul Calibur still, I think, stays. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, like if you've really seen some of the costumes, but like they're just as bad, and it doesn't get nowhere near the amount of like attention and stuff.
Yeah, who's the girl with the Ivy? Ivy with the whip. Yeah, I remember like seeing her in a tournament one time and I was like, is that legal? Is that tournament legal? That costume? Like,
I think actually it's not in some cases.
Oh, really?
No, I can't remember what it was. It might have actually, no, actually, you know what it was? It was, funnily enough, it was a Tekken stream. It was a stream where the tournament wouldn't let you stream Eliza's bikini preset.
Kira losing his mind there.
Yeah, I think it was because it was E Minor at the time who would definitely pick that.
Right.
And he was told you can't pick that because, what was it for? There was a stream and it was like, yeah, we're banning that costume.
That's so funny.
Like,
that's so funny. Yeah, fighting games are a weird bunch, but this is it strange coming from like the more sort of traditional side of esports, like with Counter-Strike was almost like, I mean, obviously Quake and that before it, and StarCraft obviously over in Asia and stuff, but I think CS:GO was the kind of launch of like Western esports, or like where it started to become a little bit more of a household thing, like that when you say esports, people know what you mean, rather than
Yeah.
having to.
No, I think Counter-Strike, and then sort of League of Legends, Dota 2, etc.
But is it
I think
is it an odd perspective shift coming from something like that, where obviously, like, even in, like, 1.6 and stuff, there was already leagues and stuff there.
I wouldn't say a perception shift. Is that what you said?
Perspective shift.
Perspective shift. Sorry, my bad. Go on, shift. You can cut that bit out. Perspective shift. I would say I saw a lot of potential in the FGC, because the problem with sort of esports people coming into the FGC is a lot of the time they just want to change it and make it more like esports, right?
Right.
And I just don't think it doesn't lend itself well to just doing that. Like, it really doesn't. I think because I've been part of like a soft entry point in the FGC through Soul Calibur at uni, I kind of knew what to expect. And then once we got into Street Fighter 4, being in a predominantly offline space with people at locals, at national events and stuff like that, the difference was quite obvious. And I feel like a lot of like I say, a lot of sort of esport sort of people might want to take advantage of that and be like, and kind of be a bit of a snake oil salesman, and like, you guys can do this if you just, and all that kind of thing. And for me, that's something that I wanted to, like, I'd never wanted to do that with the FGC. And I think initially I did have some backlash when I first came in, because there was some older sort of heads that were like against it. They were like, we don't fucking need your esport ass in here,
Yeah.
And I think it was just being safe that there was a new person coming into the scene that kind of wanted to create a team and kind of wanted to do that kind of thing. And they'd probably heard it before. And like, I just wanted to do it differently. And I wanted to respect traditions of the FGC and preserve them. And I want the FGC to become a flavor of esports, not become esports.
That's
like, I want
so
esports
good.
I want esports to have like different flavors, and the FGC having like one of the more spicy flavors, or whatever you want to call it,
Sure. No, that's a really, really cool way of looking at it, that there obviously is a compromise there. Like, like that it isn't esports, but it can be part of esports. That's such an interesting way of looking at it, and I never thought about it like that. I thought that it was always going to be a fight, and that the old guys are just going to be there, like, bringing their PlayStations to locals until they die. And then there was the esports side of it, which is big events and stuff and that. Like, but obviously there is a middle ground there. I never thought about that. That's so interesting, man. A flavor of esports. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's something that I've thought about for quite a while, because obviously, we are heavily involved in esports, and famously, esports makes no money, right? So I put a lot of time and money into the FGC because I love it. It doesn't make any business sense whatsoever for RIZE to be in the FGC. This is a product of passion, and actually hoping that the right kind of investment can come into the FGC, and we can be part of that, and sort of the people that we've championed and that we've supported, like, benefit from that.
Yeah, definitely.
As the wider community will as well. And I think that's how RIZE has been built up anyway. Like, RIZE has always been built up on the idea of like, we're a family, we're very relaxed, and more relaxed than we were at the very start, even now, just in terms of like, the way that we operate as a team. We don't have harsh rules on people, and we don't try and take ownership of people's content. We don't try and do any of that. You do you. We'll promote you, and we will try and make our way through that.
Right.
Rather than using you as a pawn for our own gain.
Yeah.
We are your partner in this, right? You do you. We will support you, and if you can support us as well in your growth, then it's mutually beneficial. And that's kind of like something that I've wanted to sort of try and establish from the get-go in Tekken 7, really, because like I say, a lot of teams don't work that way. And I think sometimes if they come from an esports background, they're like, we're from, we're an Overwatch team or whatever. And it's like, we do it this way. And, and they try and it's almost condescending to be like, you guys don't really know. I get it. You guys don't know how this works. Let me tell you, you have to do this. And it's like, Or why? You know, why don't we accommodate the FGC? Because it's actually been here a long time. You know, what makes it great is actually a lot of the things that traditional esports, if you want to call it that, would remove. You know, at times the FGC isn't professional. It isn't, easy on the eye when it comes to sort of like the production values, and you know, and I still hope that doesn't put people off. You know, getting a stream up in a 12-man Tekken 7 tournament when Tekken 8's like, you know, at its pomp. No, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, I hope that, you know, it doesn't deter people. Like this idea that, you know, as we escalate all the production values, like, you know, you were part of like a big production yourself in at the mix-up, and that's great. And I want to see more of that. But I hope, you know, people can look at that and be inspired and motivated, but they don't feel like, oh well, we can't do this anymore. It has to look like this every time, otherwise we don't do it. And I think we can't be doing that. And I feel like that accounts for like you know, these Discord clans and communities. Like, you know, obviously Elf is closed now, but you still got stuff like in Scotland, like the MIG boys. You know, Electric Dojo doesn't really do it as much, but the sort of ED guys, NBA guys in Manchester. So it's like, you know, I think that's still important as well. Like, rep your local scene. Like, I feel like that's cool. Like, if you're a sponsored player, obviously there comes to there's an impasse where it's like, where you have to make a decision between one or the other. Obviously, you know, if you want to be a well-traveled player, obviously, your local scene will hopefully support you on that. But I'm kind of like rambling on a little bit, but I think you get what I'm saying, really. I think traditions are important, and I think we've got to preserve them and blend them in to where we want to go and not just forget about them. That's why, just to touch on as well, like the way that we structured, even in the before, like, you know, we had contracts that were kind of a bit more rigid and stuff, and now like it's completely different, because it's like we don't want to feel like someone is singing to our tune. It's more like we're singing our tune. You know, this is what we want to do. And a lot of the time, I will say to someone, what, you know, even if they're a content creator, for example, like we've had partners with content creators, and a lot of the time, you know, esports organizations will get a content creator, and then they'll be like, "There's our logo. Go put it on your shit, blah blah blah," and then we'll post that you're live and stuff. And that's not how we do it. We say, okay, what's your comfort level? Because we'll match your energy, right? You know, we will promise you this and this and this as a base, no matter what you do. The more you do, the more we'll do, right? And how comfortable are you repping RIZE? If you want to go full out and you want to have RIZE written everywhere, we can get you that stuff. We'll give you it, right? And we'll support you probably a lot more than the person that doesn't want anything to do with us on their content, right? But that's a give and take relationship, and that's 100% what I'm about, what RIZE is about. And I won't go into any sort of topics around this, but I feel like there's a misconception about that. Because I feel like earlier on, people saw me come into the FGC. They don't really know what my ethos is, how I sort of treat players, how we have my relationship with players. Like, we've got guys that have been here for years, and they're my friends now. You know, they're my friends because I've known them for that long. We have that much mutual respect. And I think some people who then don't have the regular opportunities to see me offline, speak to me in person, on the phone, Discord, anything like that, don't know what that is. You don't know what I'm about and what RIZE is about. They still have maybe old sort of conceptions of that. So I am actually very well traveled. I think, like, a lot of people probably don't know. Like, they'll see me at Elf, but when Elf, unfortunately, he's now going. I keep saying at Elf, but there's only one more. And I won't be there because I'm at Combo Breaker. But I go to all the North stuff when I can. You know, NBA in Manchester, SFO in Leeds. You know, multiple venues in Leeds, multiple venues in Manchester. The Liverpool guys in Merseyside FGC. You know, I go to the Birmingham stuff, which is now pretty much at Birmingham Belong, New Street. I've been to Leicester when they ran the Hyper Combo. Prior to that, it was Leicester Bar Fights. You know, I've been to a lot of like places in the UK, and a lot of people might not see me there because they're not from that area, right? But I make the effort to go and sort of like go. So it's just a shame that I haven't been everywhere. Like I haven't been to Scotland as much as I'd like to go, and I haven't been to like I've been to Wasteman Weeklies or whatever it's called. You know, the Bristol guys.
Yeah.
Is it Bristol? I'd like to go there.
Yeah.
Or is it South Wales? I mean, South Wales and Bristol are next to each other, but I don't know where it actually sits.
Yeah, I know the South Wales FGC have some really cool guys down there as well. Yeah, and it is funny because I think there's a lot of this against esports sort of stuff. You kind of touched on it and that, like, and people in the FGC. I've definitely mentioned this on the podcast before, and I'm sorry for regular listeners, but like, like the old guys that are just like, oh, it's not FGC if there's, you know, like huge prize money or a big production stage or whatever, and that, like, and it's like, yeah, but you understand that, like, you want Arslan and Ash to come to your show, right? You know, you want Anakin, you want Cuddlecore, you want, you know, Nee to show up to your shows. Like, the only way that's going to happen is with money, like, you know. It's I don't know, man. The people, I've been upset by the FGC a lot as of recently, and I think it's only because I newly got bigger shows that I think people still see me as like you know, the kind of new kids, so they can voice their concerns to me about it, and I'm just like, guys, come on, like, you know, like adapt, survive, like, or stagnate and die, like, you know, like those are your choices. Like, yes, there definitely is space for the FGC, but let's not boycott esports FGC based shows because you really want to support your locals. Like, I am all for support your locals, but let's not, like, you know, pull the rug on these kind of bigger shows and stuff, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's something that needs to be handled with care, because I think, you know, we've got this Gamers 8 thing coming up and they're offering a huge amount of prize pool. We might see that again if that one comes through. Hopefully it does. And I think we've got to manage expectations a little bit, because it's like, you know, does that mean that, you know, when people are not going to get out of bed unless there's $500,000 on the line, or, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, there's still going to be a lot of events that need participation that will not have that prize pool, you know. And I think I've seen it in other games. I saw it in Street Fighter 5. Like I say, I won't mention any names, but, you know, there was a tournament that was offering a lot of money. They were offering salaries to players to participate in them. So they were like, you play in this tournament for 12 weeks and we will give you £500 a month, basically, right? Okay. So we will pay you that. And then, but then you have to leave your sponsors, and you'll join a sponsor for a couple of weeks, right? And then we might sign you, we might drop you. Now the thing is, what happened with that system is, you know, yes, the very good players got fed, yeah, and, you know, and they're almost like, I can't believe this, you know, we're getting £10,000 prize pool, and we're paid to go, like, we're paid to play in it, right? Yeah. And the problem is that eventually, after so long, new players will come into the format that maybe are not at that level, right? But they're going to get paid that level, right? Because that's the base. So then when those players come out, they're like, you know, perhaps they're not making top 8 at their locals or nationals or anything like that, but like, yeah, but, you know, I still won't get out of bed for 10K. It's like, how's this, you know, do you get what I mean? And it's like, yeah, the base has been falsely sort of set, and then once that sort of production collapsed, which it did, obviously, you know, it's like, okay, where do we go from here? Like, you guys are gonna have to really just lower your standards and come to a £50 event, yeah, you know. And I think eventually it got there in the end. I think the community started to actually appreciate the game and the community more. Right. Because I think when Street Fighter 5 came out, there was this rush. Oh, this is the esports title. This is the one, right? And maybe Tekken 8, people thinking it like this, there was a rush for it to be that this is going to be the game where the money comes in, everyone's going to get fed, everyone's going to eat well. And it's like, but then after it kind of like blew up in a few people's faces, including our own, people then, I think after a while, the game obviously got patched and fixed, and there was like releases, and then I think people started to fall in love with Street Fighter again for what it was, and like you saw things like community efforts like Salt Mine, Salty EU, these kind of events, and you know, obviously a hell of a lot of work from the Logan Sammer and Matthew, and the unequal media boys, you know, putting all that work in to actually create their own ecosystem and go, look, we don't need people to come in and give us all this money. We can create something really great and get people really loving Street Fighter again. And they did that.
Yeah.
Now, so we just got to learn from that. And if maybe people weren't involved, they can't learn from it. But that's why people like myself, people like those people I just mentioned are there. Spag, he's been around a long time through that period as well. You know, he was one of the guys in the corner playing tag when Street Fighter was blowing up. You know, he's been there when Tekken's been so small. And I've been there. You know, I was like, oh, Tekken Tag 2? How many players he got? 6? Like, it's like, that's what it was like, you know? Yeah. It was a side event to a Street Fighter tournament.
Yeah. He told me when we were commentating versus fighting top 8 with that big cinema, and it was entirely sold out. You couldn't get in, right?
Yep.
And Spag just said, when I remember being in this exact same venue, and Tag had half of one row of the cinema, like, and it was just a bunch of lads, like, and they were all players who were already in the tournament and stuff.
But that's the FGC.
Yeah.
That's the FGC, and it almost needs to be an FGC and an FGE. FG, fighting game community, and fighting game esports, right? The fighting game esports is the all these big dons, yeah. You know, the FGE, you know, you go make your money, but the FGC, we're out here 12-man bracket, you know.
Dude, you won't believe it, but I was talking to the head of a production team, and he actually used exactly that same thing. He was like, we do need to separate. We need to go FGC and FGE and label the events as such, like, and stuff, because he was getting so much pushback for pumping more money into it and stuff. And I guarantee you he watches it, like, so he's when this video gets released, I'm getting a DM being like, can you believe he just said FGE as well?
It makes sense, because it's like, you know, this is an idea that we have to preserve the FGC, and I understand that, but it's almost like, perhaps if you take away the idea that we're not changing the community, that's staying the same. You know, it's just we're adding a premier layer, which is for the best of the best players who do want to earn the big money, right? Yeah. But ultimately, it's all part of the same thing. It's just label. I mean, it's different. I don't think it'll ever happen where it's like you can literally just label it differently. I mean, who knows? But never say never. But I mean, Riot Games might do it. They might do it. They might try something with something. Project L or whatever it's going to be called. And I'll be taking Project L's in that game for sure. I'll be playing it. You know, and if it's like Fortnite money, maybe I can finish a millionth and get 5K like the Fortnite kids do. Like, we had a player. Sorry to just distract.
No problem.
That's esports money. He came a millionth, and he got like $5,000.
Jesus.
I was like, what? This 13-year-old kid, and then now he's like Hollywooding RIZE, like,
the big Fortnite
I'm like, you came a millionth though.
Ridiculous, man. God, imagine that's player base, dude. That's 1 million people is 10% of everybody who's ever bought Tekken 7. Like, that's insane. Like,
it's silly money, and I was just like, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But that money, I think, if that ever does come into fighting games, I don't think it will, because ultimately money has to come from somewhere. And I'm a big vocalist when it comes to this, because, you know, sometimes there's this idea, and it's like, you know, we need more money, and it's just like, well, it's got to come from somewhere. Promote the shit out of your games. Promote the shit out of your clips. Do your bit, because it has to come from somewhere, and it comes from advertisement revenue, viewership. It comes from that, you know. And this is why I'll touch up on one thing as well, because there was this idea as well. I think something was sort of put out on Twitter, and it was kind of like, I think organizations are done. There's no benefit to being part of an org and this kind of thing. And I can see why people would say that, but my counter argument is, the FGC is not ready for that. Like a lot of the players, and this is when we were talking about the dojo system previously, right? So part of that sits with this idea that a lot of these players wouldn't be sponsored if not for the way that we do things, because ultimately the way fighting games worked in the past was, the cream of the crop was sponsored by brands, Mad Catz, Razer. Then you'd have sort of angel investor type organizations that would then, like Echo Fox came in. They had one of the NBA guys.
Yeah, Rick Fox. Yeah, he was an NBA guy.
So it's like, that's basically the same thing. It's a hobby project. He had a lot of money, that kind of stuff. So, it was the cream of the crop, and it's kind of like it leaves out a huge amount of players, right? But in the day the day and age of online gaming, right? And this is where esports gets it right, in my opinion, is because, because a lot of them games were played online before the FGC, primarily just to the netcode, especially like Counter-Strike using dedicated servers, tick rate, and all that. You could play online, and your player base was huge because of it. And so, in terms of competitive player base, should I say, yeah. So that means that a lot of players, there's just a huge tier on grading of levels within the community, and after a certain point, people can start to then benefit from their current ability. Now, if we took that away in the FGC in terms of what we're trying to do with the dojo, and then the fact that I like to support a lot of UK players, like a lot of people are like, well, it's great that you have these players in the UK, but what have you ever considered like picking up a Pakistan player or a Korean player that's maybe sort of like a left field pick, but what's the Horang player, like the young what's he called?
Kicking machine.
No, the Korean is it Young or Yun? I forget his name. He was
Yonorang.
Yeah, Yonorang.
Yes.
Like players like that. Why don't I consider that? And it's like, well, there's one answer to it. It's because we could easily do that. We could literally go, by everyone, we're going to just whatever support we're giving you, we're just going to put into probably one or two sort of Korean players or Pakistani players.
Right.
We could easily do that. But why? Well, I want to support the UK scene, the UK and Irish scene. I am half Irish.
Let's go.
I want to do that. So that's my belief, that it's actually built. That's called investing in your grassroots, right? My grassroots is the UK and Irish scene. So that's what I want to invest in. That's what we want to do. We could easily be like, we're just going, like I say, going a different route, and then that would benefit this model of supporting the cream of the crop. Only those who are kind of like playing in the Asian events and getting like top 8 at like an Evo Japan or whatever, or top 16 at Evo Japan or whatever. So it just means that you basically then, all these players that you're telling to go and ignore organizations and sponsors and stuff like that at a lower level, they're not going to get a brand. Like, you think you're going to go to Logitech and go, hey, I'm a player who got ninth in London. They're going to go ninth in London. We know it's a good result. We know top 32 at versus fighting is a good result.
Yeah.
Go and tell that to Lynx.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a streamer. I get around about 120 viewers, and they're like, is that it?
Yeah.
We're like, we fucking know that that's hard work. We know that that's fucking well done, like really well done. They don't give you that pat in the back. They want viewership, and then they want prestige. And ideally viewership comes before that. So like, and following obviously, and influence, which basically all equals influence, right? Yeah. So you can't go to a brand and be like, oh yeah, I got top 24 versus fighting. We now pay for everything. Because they're going to be like, well, where does the money come from?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to make it back from people buying Lynx Africa, or they're not going. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen. So we need to be sensible in what we're saying, right? So I feel like we ultimately absolutely serve a purpose within the UK FGC in terms of supporting talent that wouldn't even get the time of day from other people. And I feel like that's amicable from, like, I can be proud that that's what we're doing, that we're saying, you know, we're going to see AO Richie, who essentially was, like, you know, a Tekken streamer from Birmingham who we were keeping an eye on, that grew into this widely loved person who's a great, absolutely fantastic guy. I can't even tell you, like, he's so humble, like, he's so good, and we always take the piss and say he's Hollywood. And like when he was at Golden Letters, I stood behind like a bar, you know, like, you know, what they called
like the rope thing, the velvet rope.
Yeah. And I was like, am I allowed like to come speak to you, like, you know? But yeah, absolutely amazing person, great attitude. All those things. But, like, you know, we probably wouldn't have been able to we wouldn't have even thought about him had we had this mentality that we're not worth anything, you know, we're not contributing to the grassroots, and, you know, and we're not wanted or whatever. And by the way, I'm gonna go with Richie to Combo Breaker, so that's gonna be cool.
Nice.
So
that's gonna be,
yeah, so he's coming with and it's my birthday weekend.
Oh,
so it's like,
man, let's go.
Yeah, so all we need now is like some big things to happen over there.
Like, I mean, European Tekken now is at the strongest it's ever been, like, ever. Like, I mean, the caliber of players now, like, with Richie and stuff, and even like the kind of the maybe not the top tier of players, but the next guys down. Like, if you see any top 8 from like recent events, you're like, any one of these guys could make the grand finals on a good day, like, you know. But internationally, like, or like intercontinentally, not just in their own scene, like, or whatever, you know. People have stepped up, like, you know, Richie and stuff, who, like, before Golden Letters was doing okay in the elf stuff and that, but like, it wasn't your big standout name, like. And now, like, if Richie shows up and he's in a bracket, people are like, oh damn, oh, I've got Richie second round if I win my first match. Oh, best of luck, I'll see you at the Red Bull fridge later on.
Yeah, that's all to hit the way that he sort of treats the game, though. And it's like the things that we were talking about before, and like looking at things, looking at people and their attributes. You know, he's very competitive. He plays football. You know, he's very analytical, and he's very self-assured and confident. Like, if you watch his streams, he's very confident. Like, you know, he's not a shy. He might be quiet and sort of and stoic sometimes, right? But he's not a shy person. Like, he's very confident in himself. He's happy to shit talk. You know, if he starts shit talking, he's happy to say, "I'm the best. I'm the best."
Right.
And that was one of the things you'd hear all the time in his clips, is like, "I'm the best." And it's like that his approach to the game is why he's gone on from there to there, is because he's slowly increased. And people, like you say, people knew about him and that he was a problem, but as he's become more of a mental threat to people, where they're like, oh, it's Richie, he's also better. So not only is he the person that you're worried about, he's actually better than the person that you're worried about, because he's improved over the weekend. Right. He's now better, right? So he's better than what you're worried about. You know what I mean? And that just shows that, like, the mix-up. And he was so unlucky to not to make it. Was it 1-1? I think. I think he got a drop in the end on one of his combos. He was.
Oh yeah.
He was a bit worried about that, but he's improved on last time. And I feel like one thing that you need in these big tournament runs, because you're playing a lot of games, is consistency, and you need to be able to cope with a lot of different styles. And really, you will ultimately find your style that is good for a lot of styles, right? And I feel like sometimes if you play high stakes, high reward, sometimes it pays off. And one of my favorite players that does that is Rukang. I always feel like if I was a pro player in fighting games, I would probably play like Rukang. I'd probably mash the hell out of Rajar and it works, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people might mistaken certain comments about stuff like that and see it as disrespect, but Mario's perfected his style to work in his favor, right? Yep. But ultimately, it gets him killed, right? Sometimes it does it. So sometimes you get to the point and it's like a pyramid, right? And then you're at this point where, okay, I'm always top 8. Now it's a mix-up between top 8 and winning because I'm going to have to get some of these big reads right. And sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. And you know what? I love that. I think that's so exciting. And Tekken 8 is going to be crazy for that. It's going to be crazy for that. And Rukang is going to be, I think he's going to be eating at least at the very early parts. And I'm thinking Neon K as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I just think as just to allude back to that, I have to say as well, I don't know if Mario is going to be watching this, but obviously I had to sort of coach Neon K against Mario, against Golden Letters. I don't know if you saw that. But Neon was losing his shit basically, and you know, a lot of my job, like I say, I'm not a technical player. I understand concepts and stuff, but I'm not going to go, oh, by the way, that's -14. What you doing?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I will. Sometimes I will know that, and it's just something I'll, you know, or knowing the direction, but you're not stepping left when you need to be. Like a Yoshin matchup or something like that, where maybe they're just not familiar. I did that with Shaiko once. He was getting absolutely destroyed by Yoshi, and I was like, "You're not stepping the right way." And I was typing to him on Steam because it was an online tournament, and he went, "Oh my god, thank you," in caps. And I was like, "Okay," but like offline at Golden Letters, like one of my things was like, you know, I understand. I've watched a lot of Mario, and I was just like, "Listen, we kind of know what Mario's going to do, and you have to sort of be prepared for those moments and not fall into the traps that Mario sets." And I kind of laid out a 3-step plan, and I was like, step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, think about this, right? Repeat them back to me. First thing Neon K does is, I forgot. Okay, right, let's go over it again. You know, step 1, 2, 3. Okay, repeat what we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna be conscious of the wall position and try and consciously move away from wall and don't give wall position easily and that kind of thing. And he went through. I was like, right, cool. Round 1, perfected. Neon got he was like, oh, I was like, okay, shit. I went, Neon, everything that we just talked about is what happened. And he went, I know, I forgot. I was like, okay, it's cool. But I was like, but we knew, and it's for me, it was about keeping calm and like, look, if I could be panicky, that's just going to lend the anxiety is going to lend itself to what Rukang wants to do, right? And puts you under this mental overload. This stack is just building up where you're going to be making these mistakes. He's going to be able to mix you for free. He's going to be able to do 4 or 5 hell sweeps because you're just not ready. Yeah. And so it was about sort of simmering him down and saying, look, it's fine. He's like, but I've got perfected. I was like, doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter. You still need to be perfected 2 more times for you to be eliminated.
Yeah.
That's fine. As long as you make sure you get damage on the board, that's not going to happen, right? And if you win the rounds, you're not going to get graded. And just go back to the points that we talked about. And you know, he won. And then like it was like 2-1 up because it's like first to 3, right? He was like 2-1 up, and then the round that he won 2-1. He got graded, and he was like, no, fuck. And you can see him on his stream, and he's like on the stream, and he's just like going wild. I'm like, he's 1 away. Inside, I'm like, yeah, he's 1 away from being eliminated, even though he's 2-1 up. Like Rukang could draw it 2-2, or even be halfway through that match, and then Neon's out, right?
Yeah.
And this is the LCQ as well, and it's pretty far into it, so. Yeah, so just try to bring it back down to base. You know, it's just like,
yeah, of course,
calm. You know, it's good. You know, look, if you lose to a Golden Letter and you get eliminated, then that's how you lose. But ultimately, no one's going to remember that as much as you beating Rukang 3-1. Right?
Yeah, sure, true.
So is it that? Oh, you get eliminated from a Golden Letter? Okay, but that's bad. You know, unlucky, but. You know, you have an opportunity to win just keep it cool, you know. And I kind of like tried to manage that the best I could. And then A Richie came after me and went, "Oh, you got him through that game, man." He's like, you know, I was like, to be honest, yeah, my heart was like inside, right. But you know, I don't know how we got into this topic, but I think it was more to do with just like, you know, the styles and how they're going to lend themselves to certain players and whatnot. And I think Richie's got a very good universal style that gets him very far in bracket in a very safe way.
Right.
But sometimes sometimes safety then has its own ceiling, right? Because you're then not taking enough risk when you need to. So I think he's getting a grasp of that now, because a lot of the stuff that he was doing, he was taking a lot of risk and getting good rewards for it. And then he started to like maybe not get the rewards for it at the sort of top 4 position or whatever.
Yeah.
And now I think he's really getting to grips with the balance of understanding, right?
When to flip the switch? Is it like
when to flip? Yeah, when to turn the screw.
Yeah.
Not and all the while he's getting all this experience of staying calm, you know, keeping his shit together, and he's one of the best at doing that. So was Chickenmaru, and that's one of the things I looked for, like people who are cool under pressure.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, Neon didn't tick that box. You know, I love you, Neon, but you know that's true. But he's only young, and he hopefully this experience that he's getting at a young age, he's gonna help him. He's gonna be a veteran at some point, at probably quite a young age, like Kanan Trench was. Kanan Trench was, and Gosane. Gosane's practically a veteran now, and I'm pretty sure he's young. I'm pretty sure he's like 22.
God,
like
that's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. He's been around for so long, and it's just like, because he was the kid in the scene that's now got all this international experience, and Gosane's for me one of the most underrated players. And I feel like I'm not sort of going into like creating new like sort of headlines for your podcast, but like, you know, if I have had certain wish lists of players that I would have liked to work with, or it probably would be like Rukang and Gosane.
Right.
Because I think me and Rukang would be a chaotic recipe for like. I think I would probably be in like at some point tell him just to fucking turn up to 11, and like and like give him like all the belief in the world that you are the monster today, and like it's going to be very difficult to beat you, and like, you know, have faith and that kind of stuff. And you know, I don't think he really needs that, but like I think I could tip him over the edge to like to a horrible level for people, and then Gosane, I think it's like he's very smart. I don't have loads of interactions with him, but I do sometimes. I'm in earshot of things, and I feel like he's very intelligent and he reads the game quite well. But I think I don't know if I feel like, especially because I've seen things on Twitter that he's wrote that maybe self-belief isn't as high as it could be. Like it isn't as like where Richie's self-belief is, for example.
Right.
I feel like, but I feel like he's such a strong player, man. And obviously, you know,
Yeah, I think 8 is going to be a really, really fun launch to see where all of these kind of guys, like, because obviously the aggressive style is kind of what Harada was talking about at the finals and stuff.
Yeah.
Aggressive being the buzzword and stuff, but like people who are just kind of that sort of safe fundamental style Tekken, very slow Tekken and that sort of stuff, what are they going to do? Because sidesteps were buffed. This is one thing that I noticed, like that it's much easier to get out of the way of stuff.
Backdashing worse, sidestepping better, right?
Yeah. In general, yeah, I think. But like to see how people, like, you know, because Richie definitely has that the balls to the wall thing, but it seems like he peppers that in amongst the sort of traditional Tekken style, like, you know?
Yeah, well, it's what we were just talking about then, wasn't it? Like that he's fine-tuned when he can and can't do that, and a lot of the time he was doing that maybe when he shouldn't, and it worked, and then sometimes it didn't. But along with having very good fundamentals, spacing's key, so key. With this is where I'm a bit like unsure about, because sidestepping's fine and that kind of movement, but having the actual neutral, the natural awareness in neutral to judge distance and close distance and widen distance, that's going to be the biggest thing for me, particularly. I mean, even I use that, and I'm a bad player, like, but even I like the idea that I actually I can control the distance with a backdash and not have to go forward the whole time. So I think what we're going to see is, and I don't want to be plugging Virtua Fighter the whole time because I know certain people don't like it, but like I feel like with Virtua Fighter there is a lot of forward movement, and there's a lot of like this,
right?
And they're constantly like sidestepping around each other, and it's aggressive sidestepping, so it's like in your face. But with that, they do actually have it. To aid them, they do have like an EX button when you step to really step, for like a deep step.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if some moves will have that properties
Yeah.
in heat, or if there's any sort of. Did you notice any difference in heat with stepping?
No, I didn't notice
When you
it, to
heat
be
step
honest.
up, because you can do the heat dash,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But is there any like benefit to heat, like a heat step kind of
I
thing?
don't know. Well, I didn't notice any. There
Yeah,
could very well be.
that'd be
But
interesting to see, because that kind of fixes the thing in Virtuafire, being able to really step someone and basically get that back.
yeah, yeah,
With like an EX step, like a metered step. It's not. I mean, there's no meter in Virtuafire, but it's like you press the buttons at the same time to do it. Like, I'm looking forward to it, but I think I can see the points people are making that it's going to ruin the game for them in terms of how they play.
adapt and survive or stagnate and die. That's like unfortunately, like 6 to 7 was a huge change. Tag to 6, like tag to 7, they were all big changes. People just got on with it. There are people that still say tag 2 was the best game and they don't really want to play 7. You're like, that's totally fine. That's your choice. Like, but if you want to be competitive at anything, and something new comes out, like if you're a cyclist and they invent new wheels that make it easier to go up hills, if you're saying I kind of prefer how difficult it was to go up hills on my old bike, you're going to lose then, or
Yeah.
to win it's going to be a lot more difficult, I don't know, man.
No, I get it.
Like I understand why people would be worried, but I think, I don't know, like just complaining then for the sake of complaining, like, oh, I want my old game back. Like, sorry, bro. I mean, it's not going anywhere. You can still
Yeah,
play
the game's
7.
still there. Yeah, like I say, at some point it's going to have its own little side tournament somewhere.
Sure,
Sure. Like,
yeah.
probably will for a while anyway. I think even when Tekken 8 releases, I feel like it's not going to be long before there's like, oh, we're playing Tekken 7 over there if you want to come, like,
Yeah,
come play. It's free to enter, right?
yeah.
The winner gets a pizza.
I saw this
It's like,
this old sign from it was some American tournament, and first place got $100, second place got $50, and third place got 1 Bitcoin. And I was like, damn, that's worth like a lot of money right now. Like, but they were
can I just say I had an obscene amount of Dogecoin,
right.
and it took me like 14 days to sync my wallet from when I first bought. And when I say an obscene amount, I had like 350k.
Jesus.
So I think that equates to like 13 grand or something like that. So like obviously Dogecoin, because Elon Musk sort of tried to boost it like a couple of years ago, right? And I synced my wallet for 14 days and it was empty. I don't know where we went. I lost 13 grand.
Oh,
just
no.
like
Jesus. That's wild, man.
Sorry, that's just a random anecdote, but yeah.
That's funny. Tell me about the tracksuits and the merch line and stuff, because you guys always had like a very, very cool style, like the RIZE guys.
Yeah.
I saw Richie in the RIZE hoodie, but I've seen you in like the joggers and stuff.
Oh yeah. So at the moment the joggers are not available at the moment because we've switched vendors. I'll actually just be completely transparent about this because I like to be that. But so I've started my own clothing company.
Oh,
right?
sick.
Called Cold Ramen, right? It was something that we were going to do anyway. Me and my friend. It kind of like started with just kind of creating artwork and then just putting on t-shirts and kind of having a bit of like a Japanese aesthetic, based like an anime manga aesthetic, but that wasn't too in your face where you're going to potentially cause unwanted heckling or whatever, like,
yeah.
Or it's kind of like very subtle designs and that kind of thing. Essentially, we kind of like had some problems with our merchandise. Like, I won't go into it with the previous sort of company, but like we just weren't getting this stuff done in time, and we missed out on some big events where we wanted to get merch for the players, and then when we put the order in, like it was going to take a month to arrive, and then the event's like 3 weeks. So we're like, okay, this is not good. And then when we wanted to, we changed around some sponsorships on the jerseys, and then they weren't done. They weren't changed, and like took like 6 weeks to get that changed. And we're like, you know what, we can't. This is not good, right? And the thing is, on top of it all, like we didn't profit from it. Like the money that we made was peanuts. So I was like, let's take this into our own hands. Like this audience that we're tapping into with the manga anime aesthetic, that can lend itself, to the FGC, and so what I basically did is did some research. I got found the right factories and stuff, and basically we create all our merchandise, and it now sits on coldramen.co. That's the link, coldramen.co.
Damn, yeah.
/RIZE if you want to be pedantic or whatever. But so basically what that meant was we can change things on the fly. We can create custom stuff. So for example, we've done this long day t-shirt for Richie because that's his phrase. If you've not seen it, check it out. Again, and one of the things that we can do is say to Richie, look, every time someone buys this long day t-shirt, we'll give you 100% of the profits. You can have your own line of stuff, and we'll do all the work for you. And this is basically what we're offering to all our players as well. If they've got something they want to push forward and they want to profitize 100% from it, then we can do that. And then we have our own RIZE merch, and the profit margin isn't great. We don't make a lot, to be honest, but at least we get it. And it might be $3-4 on a purchase, but that goes into a revenue stream to support the players, because ultimately that's what it's for. It's not to buy my lunch every week. It's literally to put into the kitty for players to go towards other things, because obviously the way we have our structure at the moment was very much based around AAA games, and AAA games attracting investment. So at the moment, our sort of structure is obviously based around investment, private investment.
Okay.
And some of that private investment comes from me as well. Right. So, I put my hand in my pocket plenty of times. We obviously have a kitty. We have our own sponsors as well. We get some money from them. Some of it is additional revenue streams. So for example, we have our own keychains and things like that. And then we've got paid partnerships with a couple of other things as well. We're partnered with Nord as well. Again, it's one of them things where it really, we get a very good percentage, but you need to buy a NordVPN discount. Yeah. It's 6% using our code to sort of for us to see any money from that. So to cut back into it, Cold Ramen was a way for us to take it into our own hands, right? And try and just do it like that, and have and be able to just work on the fly and make cool designs. And I'm glad you say our stuff's cool, because I think that's important, because if you're going to represent a brand, right, and they're you're one of our players, here's a jersey, and it's it looks like ass. Are you going to be proud to put that on, or are you going to be I forgot, Yeah. because and that's the thing. It's very difficult as well to sort of apply that kind of pressure on players and be can you just take, and I have to do that sometimes, especially when it's a big event.
Sure.
Can you just make sure the jersey's on stream and stuff like that? Because again, the money has to come from somewhere. We have to try and get this kind of some kind of advertisement on screen, especially if we've promised it to a brand.
Yeah.
Maybe that they're on the stream, listen, your brand's going to be on the stream, etc.
Yeah. There's a huge thing, and you touched on it there. I love gamer merch, but I'd love to be able to wear it to a bar as well. And so there's a lot of them. I don't want to gas anyone up, because I actually know the designer, but there were these line of merch that came out, and they're cool within a Tekken event. As in you could definitely wear these things around, but you would never wear it anywhere else. Whereas shout outs to Logan Sama. He's designing these. I don't know if you saw the Mokujin. It's just the where it changes color, or it goes from pink to a blue or something. Just has the Mokujin logo. You could wear that anywhere. The same. He was trialing this new one, and it was just a black hoodie with big squares, and on the squares it was Konomitsu stage from Tekken, and they were just washed out pink, things Brilliant. Of it, just so cool.
That's right.
This shit was so cool. It looked great, and if you knew, you knew, but it wasn't
subtle hints, like exactly. It's subtle hints, it's nods to it, because like ultimately you don't like. It's not like people are embarrassed to be gamers or anything like that. But sometimes it's like, I'm a gamer, but that's not everything I am. And I don't want to walk around like a signpost saying I am a gamer. I want to be having a conversation with someone and go like, yeah, I'm a gamer. Not like, oh, you're a gamer. Like, I don't want that, because it's like, that's not my identity. I do not identify as a gamer. I am a gamer as part of my other things that I do. I'm also, I'm so I 100% get it, and you want to look good as well. And sometimes, unfortunately, like something can be really like, oh yeah, that's sick. That looks great. Big anime sort of like scene that you're really into, like a Dragon Ball thing or whatever, which are very popular. And obviously, like a lot of streetwear and urban wear, they blend like the Dragon Ball stuff really well, and it's almost transcended what we're talking about a little bit with the Dragon Ball stuff. But ultimately, it's like, you just want subtle indications of like. Of things where, you know what I mean? And I think like you said, like look what Logan's doing. And I think that was a big part of how RIZE actually rebranded as well, because we took on feedback from certain people that were a little bit embarrassed to have the zombie logo, because we had a zombie originally, it was based around my concept when I was talking to because at the time I didn't know how to do like vectorized logo art and stuff.
Right. It's
a completely different thing to Photoshop, and at the time that wasn't a skill that I had. Thanks to my tenacity, I'm all right at it now. But by the time I was like, imagine Blanca crossed with the tank from Left 4 Dead, like the tank zombie.
Right.
I was like, that right? I want a zombie Blanca that's just a beast.
Yeah.
And and that's what it was. But it was too. At the time, mascot logos in esports were like a big thing. It's like, you got to have something on there, a mascot, right?
Yeah.
Everyone wanted one, but then eventually it just became a bit cliche and a bit like,
the cartoon logo thing. Yeah, it was it's just because it's so difficult to, like what you're talking about is express subtlety and that sort of shit. Like, like it doesn't matter what you have. That is now the absolute center point of the design, like, and there is no getting around it. You can use soft colors or whatever, but it is still like you said, like if it's a zombie, that's a zombie, like, but
we softened it up, basically stripped it back and said, okay, just the RIZE text. So we took the text from that crest, because it was part of the zombie thing. We took it out, basically made it just that with the it wasn't 3D anymore. It had a 3D look, but didn't have the two tones anymore.
Yeah.
And like, okay, that works. Now we can put that on anything, and it's like it's very subtle. People are not going to like, oh right, and the logo is quite cool. I think the logo type with just the text saying RIZE Ring, it's cool, and you can use that in lots of different ways. And that's where we've gone with the brand. But
well, look, I mean, best of luck with that. As soon as those that tracksuit set drops, man, I'm definitely picking up one.
We'll send you something, yeah. We'll send you a little gift for having.
Look at this, man.
Drop.
But unfortunately, I think we're out of time here, just with all of the technical issues. I would love to sit and chat. I feel like me and you could just sit and chat for another 2-3 hours or whatever.
Maybe in a few months we'll do a part 2, right?
Let's do it. But listen, Gaiden, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for kind of shedding a bit of light on who you are and what you do and stuff. And that was my last point. Are RIZE accepting any new players? If people are watching this and they want to get involved with the competitive side?
At the moment, we're doing things on a scouting basis. If your best shot, though, is in the new games. So Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, if you have your eyes on those. Mortal Kombat 12 as well. If you have your eyes on those games, reach out sort of closer to the release, and so we'll keep an eye.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's your invitation to the big leagues right there. But listen, Gaiden, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it.
It's always fun talking to you, man.
All right. See you soon.